Hi, I'm Shelley Danko Day, a food systems nerd with a passion for rethinking the way we eat. And you're listening to With Bowl and Spoon, stories of food, community, and how our personal relationships with food grow and evolve. Today I'm talking with Chad Townsend, one of the founders of Millie's Homemade Ice Cream. He and his wife Lauren started Millie's about 10 years ago, back when Chad was still a chef dreaming of opening a restaurant. But instead of a fine dining spot, he bought a Paco jet, charged it to Lauren's credit card with the promise to pay it off by the end of the summer, and started making ice cream. That little risk turned into something much bigger than they expected. We get into all of it, how they started, what they've learned along the way, how they built their own dairy plant, and why ice cream turned out to be a better fit than restaurant life. If you've ever had an idea that made your stomach flip a little, something exciting but kind of terrifying, this episode's for you. Because sometimes the best things happen when you take a chance and say yes. Hope you enjoy. So excited today to have as my guest in Millie's headquarters, Chad, the owner of Millie's Ice Cream. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about Millie's?
Hey Shelley, thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to do this. Obviously, we've known each other and interacted for a while, so this is great. Excited to just kind of sit down and talk about Millie's and food. And obviously, I love food. Food is a huge part of my life, so. I started Millie's about 10 years ago with my wife. I was a chef in a past life. We certainly can dive a little bit deeper into that. But worked at some really great restaurants here and abroad. And I left the last restaurant I was working at with the intention of opening my own place, right? That's the next logical step.
A restaurant.
Chefs. Yes,
yeah.
A restaurant. Left the restaurant. I was operating it, but I didn't own it. And my wife had a good job. We didn't have kids at this point, and she said, take your time. We can live off of one salary. I quickly got very bored of just looking at real estate. I still get very bored of looking at real estate. Fortunately, that at this point in Millie's trajectory, there are much smarter people who do that and just tell us where we should go. So I started making ice cream. I talked my wife into buying a Paco jet, which is a very expensive kind of tabletop ice cream machine that I had used in restaurants prior to this.
So it's a commercial ice cream maker.
It is, but it works differently than a standard ice cream machine. A standard ice cream machine, you put ice cream base in, usually almost always refrigerated, right? And it's a liquid base. And as the ice cream churns, right, it's getting colder, it's starting to put air into it through, one of a few different methods. The Paco jet, you freeze it into a metal can. You freeze the base, and then it has a very high-speed blade that spins and effectively churns it from frozen.
So it cuts up the frozen stuff.
It does, yeah, and it spins so fast, and it's kind of such a sharp blade that it creates a really great, very beautiful ice cream. Oh, people do purees and stuff with it, but it is, it was our kind of start. So I said to Lauren, I'm going to buy a Paco jet. She said, that's fine, go buy a Paco jet. And I said, well, chefs don't make a whole lot of money, and I was a low 6 credit score guy. So I said, well, I need you to buy this for me. And she did. She said, fine, I'll buy it, but you have to pay it off this summer. So, the fortunate luxury for me and for us at that point was that I had been around the food scene in Pittsburgh long enough that I had a lot of friends. And one of my dear friends still to this day is Justin Steele from Bar Marco. And they had a second space back then and real close to our first location in East Liberty. And he said, yeah, you can sell it here Friday nights. Got pretty popular pretty quickly. And people were like, hey, can you make this for our restaurant? Or can we buy this for the co-op or places like that? Obviously, I couldn't. I was making it illegally in my kitchen. So Lauren and I thought, maybe there's something to this. We did a really wacky CSA. It's funny, I tell these stories and I think about like some of the wacky stuff we did and how challenging it was, but how ultimately valuable for Millie's it really was. And so we decided we were going to do a CSA, but it was going to be a little different because we didn't have a regular space that people could pick up, so we were going to deliver it. We thought, oh, this will be fun. It'll be a weekend, Saturday mornings. We'll drive around, we'll listen to music, we'll drop off ice cream for 10 houses, and it'll be great. And we expected, 10 to 15 signups, and we got 75. So it went from like, hey, romantic Saturday mornings, driving around, to like, now we need to each take our own car. We need to like plan these logistics. But it was great, I don't think that everybody who got it would say that it was always great because we didn't like have coolers. So we would just set it like on your porch. We would say, hey, we're going to be there between, 10:30 and 11.
Come and get it.
And we'll just set the pine on your porch. So hopefully you're home. So there was melted ice cream. We had to replace plenty of that. It was, it was certainly a harebrained scheme. But I think it was great because it offered us the opportunity to show people what we wanted to do. And once we did that, we set out to build a small dairy plant. Because still, to this day, we were still convinced that our business was going to be wholesale ice cream, so restaurants and grocery stores. So we set out, build a little dairy plant. It was very important to us that we pasteurized. So we bought a pasteurizer. I learned about what that took from the state. I listened to a lot of podcasts, shows, interviews, audiobooks, whatever, right? And there's the standard business person cliche. If I knew then what I know now, I would have never done that. And that's 100% true, but it's too late now, right? We pasteurize and that's our thing. That's part of our identity. But
yeah, I'm curious why you didn't just buy already pasteurized milk.
So I did buy pasteurized milk. The thing about pasteurizing product is that if you were to buy 6 ingredients, right? So say our vanilla ice cream is 6 ingredients. Pasteurized milk, pasteurized cream. You could buy egg yolks that were shelf stable, cane sugar, kosher salt, vanilla, right? That makes up our vanilla ice cream. And all of those you can buy on the shelf, ready to eat. You could eat them in the grocery store if you wanted to, right? It's not going to be super delicious, but you could safely eat them. The moment that you combine them, the state requires you, and federal, requires you to repasteurize.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know the process of...
It's wacky. It is super wacky. And so...
It's for food safety.
It is a food safety thing.
Sure, yeah.
Yes. And so, it makes total sense because they assume that you're going to introduce something when you're mixing it, right? Through a clean or through a dirty implement or whatever. That's the assumption. So repasteurization is what they require. Today we process raw milk, but we didn't at that point because it was hard to get raw milk in the small volume we were getting. So we were still getting pasteurized milk. We were working with a dairy in Blairsville called Valewood. And we just kind of set out to pasteurizing. That was going to be what we were going to do. I was not very far removed from being a chef those days. And it was really important to us. It still is. It's still a huge part of our identity. But it was important to us that we were going to have seasonal things, have seasonal food, use real fruit. We were going to kind of demonstrate that there was a way to make ice cream like people used to do it, right? Without industrial stuff and, stabilizers and gums and all those things that I, philosophically didn't have an issue with, but it was more of kind of a challenge. People used to make ice cream this way. Obviously, it's easier to do it the one way, but let's do this the way we want to do it.
But you're utilizing electricity and refrigeration, not necessarily.
Absolutely. I'm not turning it in a bucket of salted ice.
Yeah.
No. But we're not
somewhat old.
Yes, it is certainly a modernized version of it, but more about kind of the ingredients, the bill of materials, right? We weren't going to use stabilizers to aid in freezing or thickening, right? We weren't going to use gums. We weren't going to use strawberry flavoring, artificial flavors, even natural flavors. Right to this day, we still don't use it. We weren't going to use food coloring. We use food dyes to this day, but they're real food, right? If we're going to add something to strawberry ice cream, because again, strawberries are variable in color and it's not as red as we would like it to be, we add organic beet powder. Or with our dairy-free mint and our pistachio, we add spirulina. We made some blue flavors where we use butterfly pea powder. So we still do all of that to this day, and that's very important to us. That was what we were setting out to do, was to make that our kind of mission. And we opened Shady Side with the intention that it was going to be just kind of an opportunity to market to wholesale people what we do. And after 2 days, I was like, we're not doing wholesale anymore. We were just so busy, and it was just, it was so much more fun and engaging than kind of being a wholesale ice cream salesperson.
Was this location in Homestead your production facility?
Not where we're at right now.
Okay.
So we were originally in Homewood. And it was a small little facility. It was 900 square feet. It was, not too much bigger than this office, like this little front office space. And we had a pasteurizer, a batch freezer, a 2-door refrigerator, and a 2-door or 3-door freezer. A couple tables, a blender, a cutting board, knife, and a 3-bowl sink.
Then you got food safe certified.
Yep.
And went for it. And you were doing your pasteurization there.
Yes. Yep. So we were doing pasteurization there, 30 gallons at a time. And then we were, cooling it and turning it into ice cream. And Shady Side opened, and it was great. We were just kind of off and rolling.
So you were a scoop shop.
We were an ice cream shop. We were, we were making waffle cones. We were, serving toppings, all that, and it was a ton of fun. It was something that we were, obviously we still are, but something we were very proud of. Right, we did this thing out of nowhere. Kind of on a whim, and it was working.
So you dragged your wife into this business then?
No. Some points I still drag her around to different things, but I definitely remember an email when I was at Salt of the Earth, which is the restaurant I left to go to start this, where she in her past life she was in a finance community. And she sent me an email, and the subject of the email was, "Can we start an ice cream company?" And then in the body of the email it said, "I just want to be an ice cream CEO. I don't want to do this anymore." She was traveling a ton, and it was a very demanding career, and she was just not having fun with it. So that was that certainly wasn't the kickoff step. But it was always there in the mind when we were starting this thing.
So I want to ask you about some of the first flavors that you made.
Yeah.
You were selling at Bar Marco. So what were those flavors?
We had some really great ones. We had some fine ones. We had some really stupid ones. Vanilla. To this day, it's called Chad's Vanilla. I'm not the kind of guy who would name an ice cream after myself. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek joke with my wife and I, but I love vanilla ice cream. Chefs say, a great chef should be able to make a roast chicken, right? And to me, it's the same thing, right? If we can take 6 ingredients and we can make it so that people want to eat it as it sits, then putting anything else in it is just kind of an addition to whatever people want, right? Then you could put chocolate-covered pretzels in it, or you could put peanuts and caramel, or you could put, a swirl of this, or strawberry jam, or something, right? But if it stands alone as a great ice cream, right, that's a good base.
You got to have a good base, like pho.
Exactly.
If the broth isn't good, just forget it.
Yeah, exactly. And so we iterated on that a bunch of times. I think the one that we have been serving now for several years was our 17th or 18th iteration of it. So, that was obviously an early always there. We messed around with a lot of the standard ice cream shop ones. Coffee or, again, strawberry, pistachio, things like that.
And those all have a vanilla base?
No.
Okay.
So they have a, kind of a similar base. Most of our ice cream is made with eggs. Obviously, the dairy-free stuff is vegan, so that is not made with eggs. And then we have a small kind of lane of ice creams that we don't put eggs in for whatever reason. Maybe we want the ice cream to not have the kind of eggness that our regular ice cream does, or it doesn't align with what like the end ice cream should be. But for the most part, the base that the vanilla is with the removal of that vanilla is what we use for a lot of things. We have to alter it based on what the ingredient is, but that's kind of a core. It's a building block for them.
Well, a lot of people think of vanilla as plain. So
People
when you're
say
looking
that
at
all the
vanilla and
time.
chocolate, and my husband is the one who really opened my eyes, and he's like, vanilla is a flavor. It's a really good flavor. And I know, I always thought French vanilla. Okay, French vanilla is a flavor, but vanilla is just plain.
Yep.
But it's not.
It's not. Yeah, and I say, people say that all the time, like, I'm boring, I'm just going to have vanilla, or I'm going to have plain old vanilla. And, I think vanilla is great, right? I love vanilla. Our vanilla ice cream only has vanilla bean in it. And that's not to say I don't love vanilla extract, because I do. I keep it at our house. I use it in a lot of stuff, right? A chocolate chip cookie wouldn't be the same without it. I put it in pancakes when I make pancakes on the weekend, because I love the flavor of vanilla extract, but it's not quite the vanilla flavor that we're looking for. But if you think about it, right, like you go to buy hand soap, you go to buy whatever, cleaning products, air fresheners, they sell vanilla ones of those, right? They don't sell chocolate. Nobody will buy chocolate hand soap or they do sell, some strawberries.
You might have an idea there.
Yeah. But so vanilla is a great flavor, and it's and we pay a lot of attention to it, right? We treat it just as the same we would pistachio or hazelnut or whatever. I love vanilla ice cream. It's my favorite.
Cool. So what kind of, you said there were some stupid
flavors. Really dumb ones.
Curious.
I have one that I'm going to try in the fall again that was very poorly received. And I don't know if that's from an execution standpoint, but I did quince and star anise. And Lauren hated it. It was not well received, but we basically braised quince in like apple cider and then pureed it and flavored the base with star anise and then made like a quince jam that we put in it, and it was not well received. Some of the cheese ice creams we made, not well received.
I just saw a cheese ice cream at the Asian store, and I was like, cheese ice cream?
Yeah.
But yeah, okay.
We still do it
Some
occasionally.
cultures, I guess, yeah.
Like in one-off collaborations, we'll do it. We just did a collaboration at the U.S. Open with somebody where we did 2 scoops. So one was stracciatella. They were both gelato, but one was stracciatella, like stracciatella cheese. And then one was stracciatella gelato, like traditional Italian gelato of just like sweet ice cream with chocolate shavings, chocolate ribbons in it. And it was a fun thing to do, I made a Maytag blue cheese one, which was, they did not like that. Manchego did not go well.
Oh, now that's surprising.
Yeah. But, it's like, ice cream is interesting. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and there's the great thing about ice cream, but also the challenging thing about making ice cream is everybody is familiar with it. Everybody has a baseline for what their expectation is. Like, we don't make very many sorbets. If I could make a business that was just sorbet, I would, because I love sorbet. But people don't respond to sorbet in the same way, because if they say, hey, let's go get ice cream, right? They're thinking of a hot fudge sundae or a milkshake or something. They're not thinking of peach sorbet, right? And that's not everybody. We certainly sell it, but I mean, it's a fraction of a fraction.
So the sorbet has no dairy.
No dairy. It's
and
just
then
fruit.
There's sherbet, which have dairy.
Is light dairy.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
And then there's ice cream. And then we call our dairy-free stuff dairy-free gelato. So you're allowed to call, there's like a whole regulatory component to what you're allowed to call ice cream based on standards of identification and yada yada.
So what is your dairy-free?
Coconut cream is the base for almost all of it, almost all the time. It responds really well. It's high fat, so it behaves just like milk. The one challenge with it is that it has a flavor. Mm-hmm. So we either try to make flavors that kind of align with the coconut flavor, or we just kind of try to like bludgeon it with chocolate or something, right? Like people ask, will you ever do a dairy-free vanilla? At this moment, like it's not in the works because it would just taste like coconut with vanilla in it.
Which isn't a bad thing.
Which isn't a bad thing, but it's not what people are expecting if they can't eat dairy and they want vanilla, mm-hmm. right? They come and they're like, well, this is coconut. But the dairy-free stuff is super important to us because one, as allergens go, whether it be dairy-free or peanuts or whatever, we pay a lot of attention to it because I have come across a lot of people who say, thank you so much for paying a lot of attention to the allergens in this. My kid has a peanut allergy and has never been able to go to ice cream shops, and we can go to yours regularly.
Because you don't have peanuts?
We do have peanuts, but we have like a whole protocol, right? So if you take somebody in and you say, hey, I have a peanut allergy, the scooper who's there is going to say, okay, they're going to basically like kind of one-on-one with you to say, all right, what is there any other thing you can't have? Here are our flavors that are peanut free. And then they're going to change their gloves. We have like an allergen scoop in the back, right? It's like this focused thing. It doesn't happen that much, so it's not, mm-hmm. It's not a problem. But it's like this focused thing, so we're not like taking water out of the scooping well or scooping out of the bucket case that has, maybe peanut pieces fell in it. We don't have a ton of peanut flavors, but all allergens we do this. And then they go in the back, and so there's whatever unsealed or sealed buckets are still in there. They'll take the new scoop, the new gloves, the new everything. They'll scoop out of that, and then they'll bring it back, and then you go from there. And we do a lot of like aggressive allergen testing here before, after all batches that have some sort of a potential cross-contamination. We can never be like 100%, and we always say to the people, like, it is made in a plant with this. It is in an ice cream shop, so like, but, we've had no issues, so... But it's very important, and to the same degree, like dairy-free ice cream, even though we're not allowed to call it ice cream, we treat it like ice cream. It's ice cream. It's just a different ingredient. It's not, you go into places and there's like this afterthought, this like half-ass, like, well, I know that we need to have one or two dairy-free flavors in here because, the whole family won't come in, or maybe we lose the family vote if we don't have dairy-free. So we just have it. So it's like some bullshit. It's not 900 ingredients, and it's, but it, like our dairy free is just coconut and then the stuff that's in it: mango, sugar, citric acid, salt. Right? Like it's kind of mind boggling that people are overcomplicating. It would be more expensive and more difficult for us to put stuff in it because we'd have to heat it and blend it and mix it and measure. Rather than just like, okay, here, we just do all these things, we blend it, we freeze it, and it's there, and it's really good.
Yeah, and I'm curious about why they would put those, this is just an aside.
Yeah, sure.
But why they would put in all those additives when it's going to be, it's frozen product anyway, so the shelf life is pretty long.
Ours is a year, some are more. And
that would extend it even more, but, I don't imagine your ice cream being around that long.
No, we never have any refund issues because it's been around so long. I'm super proud of that dairy-free stuff, and we get a lot of folks who don't keep a dairy-free lifestyle but just like the flavors. Chad's Vanilla is my favorite ice cream we make, but my favorite thing we make is our mango. It's the best. It's fantastic.
And that's dairy-free.
I eat it all the time. Yeah, it's dairy-free. And I don't love coconut.
Is there a difference between dairy-free and lactose-free?
Yeah, there is. Oftentimes you put like some sort of an enzyme in there if you're making a lactose-free thing.
But as far as the allergies and people that could they eat both?
So lactose intolerance isn't an allergy. I mean, we treat it like an allergy, obviously, because it creates an adverse reaction. But you can mitigate it. You can mitigate lactose intolerance with, several different steps. One of them being like people who are very lightly lactose intolerant will just say, "Hey, could I just do a half scoop?" And that doesn't seem to bother them. Some people who are a little bit more will take like a Lactaid, which we have in the shops, right? They'll say, oh, I'll take a Lactaid, and it's fine.
So you offer them at your shop?
We do, yeah. Yeah, again,
great.
everybody should be able to have ice cream, right? And then there's, as you kind of ascend the ladder of challenging situations for lactose intolerance, then you start to get into just removing it. In general, we don't add the enzyme just because it's just not what we do. But a dairy allergy, right? You're allergic to like the protein, the casein that is in there, and you can't. Lactate doesn't solve for that. That becomes a real protein allergy that has, numerous different problems. So
I see. Thanks for explaining that, because I was.
Yeah, it's always, and as it goes with all of these things, right? Like they get lumped into it. I call it allergic to eggplant. So it makes my tongue like itchy and numb. It's just, my throat's not gonna close. I'm not gonna, die, but I just stay away from it. And so, we don't want to like assess what we think people's allergy. Like tell us what you can or can't do, and we will work around that.
So Chad, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Westmoreland County, Murrysville area. My parents still live out there. It was a great place to grow up. Had some, really interesting experiences. Just kind of going to farms. We lived really close to a farm called Schramm's. My first job was at Grandma's Country Oven at Schramm's, washing dishes. I was unceremoniously relieved of my duties as not a great 13-year-old dishwasher. But yeah, we lived close to those type of things. So, was able to see those things and see food. My parents very much enjoy food. We ate very little fast food. My mom or my dad is a great cook too. Cooked, every meal pretty much. Occasionally we'll have some McDonald's, right? We were kids. It was the 80s and 90s.
Oh, that was a big treat.
Yeah, absolutely. But for the most part, like my parents cooked a lot, and that was just the thing. And they still do, right? Like they still do. My mom still makes dinner. 6 nights a week. It's just her and my dad, but she still makes a dinner. Basically every night, right? Like they don't order a lot of pizza or whatever. It's just, they just enjoy sitting down for dinner. And that was a good experience for me. She was still making meatloaf or cooking a pork chop on the grill or something, right? It wasn't anything, she wasn't making pasta from scratch or anything crazy like that. But there was this understanding that we just go and sit down and just have dinner. And at that point, right, you're discussing just the day or whatever. And, it's challenging now with my own children because it's hard. You never really realize when you're a young kid and you're picky, unless you're a picky eater all through your life, you don't realize oh boy, it's really hard to please a picky eater. And so a friend of mine is a chef who has a lot of kids locally here, Trevitt from Butter Joint, or Pie for Breakfast now, and he's obviously into food, and my kids ate so much when they were real little, 1 and 2, we would just cut off a portion of what we were eating and they would eat it. I'm then they get introduced to hot dogs and chicken nuggets, they don't want anything else. And I'm how do you do this? And he's listen, just sit down with them every day, and if they are eating hot dogs, let them eat hot dogs, they'll eventually come back around, but just teach them the benefit of sitting down and having dinner, and so they're starting to have some more things, right? Last night I made some chicken romano, we had that, right? So they'll eat some chicken, they'll eat steaks, or I'll make some tacos or something like that, just ground beef style, but that's really important to us, and it's easy with how fast everything is and how busy we are to just and it still happens, right? It's still they're eating dinner, I'm trying to do work, my wife's trying to do work, then I eat dinner, and I just eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich before I go to bed. It's hard, but we try to make an effort to do that, and that's important. Like, that's the most important part of it to me.
So what was the first thing that you cooked, that you remember cooking? How did you get into cooking?
Yeah, I had a really fantastic, like, I don't know, call it foods teacher in junior high, maybe 7th, 8th grade. I actually had 2 of them that were really wonderful. They still like are connected to me on LinkedIn, and they go into the shops. It's really, it's fantastic. I still, catch up with them occasionally. But they just kind of started us making stuff, and it was more of like a, call it home ec, even though there was no other things in the class really. It was separated into, kind of foods classes, and then more of the like sewing and whatever, which I certainly tried once, but it's not for me and not very good.
So it's funny because in a lot of schools they have things that are separated for like the boys things and the girls things.
Yeah.
So, but yours school was all, everybody did all of them?
No, but they separated the kind of, what I understand of like when my parents were in, school, the home ec class was like all of the things in the home, right? So sewing and some food type things and, all of those. They separated it and did more of a focus on the food, but the school I was at made you take the like sewing, so I had to like make a pair of underpants. That was the like semester project. I was just telling my friend about this
that's a really
just over the weekend.
Project.
Yeah, and they just kind of let you go, and they gave you a template and taught you how to sew. And I made a pair of boxer shorts out of canvas, which is really very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable underwear. So that, that part, it wasn't, I didn't have a lot of skill in that department, but I really
also
enjoyed.
That's really uncomfortable. Why would you?
Yeah. I'm like, this is what I'm going to have to do is make canvas underpants. So I did the food one, and I really had a great experience and enjoyed it. And pretty early on, I would say probably by 9th grade, decided I was going to do culinary school. So then I just started to like experiment as much as I could at home.
So you didn't have the misconception that cooking was women's work, or
not at all,
mom's job or whatever. Like you were in it. That's really interesting.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, my dad still cooks. He very much enjoyed it and is a good cook. I mean, my mom does the majority of it, like from the day to day for them, but he still does. And we would like, make vegetable soup or like try to bake bread or something, right? Like, we certainly we weren't baking it out of, heirloom grains and sourdough starter, right? It was, Red Star yeast and, AP bleached flour, but it was still like the idea of this is what we do. And I'm sure looking back on it, like if I had that bread now, I'd be like, this was horrible. But, it was a foundation for what we do. And no, I never thought for a moment that like, oh, this is, what women do. And then especially when you get into like a restaurant kitchen or whatever, right? It actually ends up being very few women in it.
Which is the flip, which is very weird. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
like once it becomes a money-making venture, then it's men's work. Like it's, yeah. It's a weird world we live in. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it never had that connotation for me. And I would say our class was split like pretty much 50-50. A couple kids from my school went to culinary school as well. Men and women.
Great. I mean, like kudos to your family and your community that was completely like bypassed.
Yeah.
For you.
No, there was no idea of that.
So junior high, you decided you wanted to do culinary school.
I did, yeah. Yep, I was pretty committed by 9th grade to go to culinary school. So that was the path that I was headed on.
What sort of things did you dabble in?
I don't know that I could recall like taking particular joy in anything other than like just trying to do this, trying to figure it out, right? Trying to understand how to cut up vegetables and how to do these different things or make a chicken stock or something like that. I just kind of continued to get more complex as I go. It was just like whatever I could do, whether it was baking something or cooking something or whatever. right? I mean, we certainly threw plenty of horrible food out, inedible food. Yeah, one of my earliest memories in culinary school is we did this dish of like a whole black bass. My dad doesn't eat fish. My mom loves fish. Still to this day, if we go out to dinner, she's ordering fish because they don't really eat any fish because my dad doesn't eat it. She's not going to make 2 meals. And so I was like, I'm going to make Mom a black bass. So it was the first time I had seen a whole fish for cooking.
And how old were you?
This was like my first year in culinary school, so I would have been 18 or whatever. Right? I mean, I had fished for a trout or a sunfish, right? But I don't know. I don't even remember what we would have done with it. Probably thrown it back. Maybe my uncle grilled it or something, but I don't really remember that. But I remember this black bass, and so I went to Woolies. We learned how to prepare this thing in class, and I was like, I can execute this. This is going to be great. Went to Woolies, bought a bass, told them I wanted it still with guts and head on. And I was going to eviscerate it in the kitchen. I was going to impress my mom with all of my butchery skills, but still do it whole. So I did that, got out, guts cleaned it, was great. Didn't scale it. So I roasted it and all the scales were on it. And my mom, God bless her, is like, oh, this is really good. These like hard scales. I mean, it's like piece of plastic on every bite, right? Just like spitting them into her napkin. So I scale my fish now.
It's a hard lesson to learn.
Fish, yes.
It's a hard way to learn.
And I'm like, why is this different? I just, I think we must have got the fish in culinary school. We must have got them scaled, or I don't know exactly remember the class, but I remember like, I'm going to make this black bass for my mom. It's going to be great. And it was not great.
Once you got past the skin, like there's a whole other bunch of fish there that she could eat without spit and scale.
Yes, but the skin was crispy. I mean, I thought it was crispy. It was the scales were hard. Just hard. And
so you go to culinary school, and then what do you do?
Then I just start working. That's what you do. I worked at
not as a dishwasher.
Not as a dishwasher.
Because you sucked at that.
I was horrible at that. Yeah, I was terrible at dishwashing. I still am pretty terrible at dishwashing. I do it more now, but I've just invested in a very good dishwasher at our house. So, I started working in restaurants. I worked at a little hometown thing in Westmoreland County, and that was its own experience. Then I worked at a little hotel restaurant in Monroeville. Learned some stuff there. The guy who was the chef there was a good guy and did a lot of good stuff and tried real hard. Then I got a job at 11 in the Strip, which was hugely formative for me.
It's one of the big burrito restaurants. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And a guy, Derek Stevens, who now has Moonlit Burgers. He was the kind of guy who really brought me along there. I left there and worked for a while in France at a 3 Michelin star restaurant, which was a whole separate understanding of cooking, right? Not just from like what it takes to put out a €1,000 tasting menu, but care and...
You said €1,000.
Yes.
Not €100.
€1,000 tasting
How long is that? Is that all day? A couple days?
No, it was like, I think it was like 16 courses. Yeah, it was, but we would serve 30 people a night, right? And not everybody, right? Not everybody had a €1,000 tasting menu, but I think the normal one was €300 or €350. And so there were 75 people to serve 35 people, and it was wild. Right, but every day, like some guy came in with a stringer full of perch from Lake Lemon or a bucket full of écrevisses, crayfish from locally, or guys would shoot birds or a deer, because it's different in Europe. Like you can shoot wild game and serve it in a commercial setting. You can't do that in the U.S., but they could do that.
That's interesting. So culinary school was probably based in French, right?
Yeah.
It was Cordon Bleu, right?
No, it was PICA, Pennsylvania Institute of Culinary Arts.
Okay.
So I think they eventually merged with Cordon Bleu, but Cordon Bleu at the time I was there was a separate entity.
But it was a French-based program, and then you went to France, and you found that to be a different experience.
Yeah, different but the same. The same but different, however you want to call it. We didn't wear toques or neckerchiefs, but there was a brigade, right? And I was familiar, at least, with how this kind of brigade works. And because of the way our day worked, it was staggered through this. Tuesday through Saturday, we did lunch and dinner. Sunday, we did lunch only. Monday, we were closed. It was in the Alps, deep in the Alps. The chef that I was working for over there was real big into foraging. And so we would show up, and two, of the experienced cooks or whatever would drive us up like these little mountain roads, and we would pick, black trumpets or morels or wild garlic or wild strawberries, just different herbs and things like that. Come back, get it going, get, lunch preparation started, then eat our staff lunch, then go and serve lunch. And then as this kind of brigade got done with their parts of the meal, right? The first 3 courses were this guy. He cleans up, he goes home. Next, finally the pastry chef goes home last, but then comes in for dinner last, because every day you go and you just take a nap. That's part of how they operate. So we would go home for 2 hours and we would take a nap or just lay around and read or whatever, and then all start to return, right? And the first guy out was the first guy in, and then, and so I was familiar with the brigade and how that worked, and from culinary school, and yeah, it was great. And they're contractual labor over there, so you get a 10 or 11 month contract at a time, and they offered me another one, and Lauren was working here and didn't want to go over because she was enjoying her job at that point. And
was she over there with you for the year?
She was not. No, she studied abroad in Strasbourg and when she was in college, and so she was familiar with the area I was in. But I said, hey, I got another contract. Why don't you just move over here? And if she had said yes, I'm probably not doing this. I'm probably over there still. I loved it. I loved the place that I was at. I loved everything about the little town that I was in, on sea. And so they have little canals through it, just like Venice, and this lake and these mountains. And it was wild.
Cool.
It was great. I was offered to stay on, and then I decided I didn't want to stay over there if Lauren couldn't come over. So moved back here, started working at Salt of the Earth. Unfortunately, probably four months or so after I came back from France, Lauren started to become disenfranchised with her job. It was a little too late then to go back. So I was working a couple days a week at Salt of the Earth, and we were considering that we would move to California. So a friend of mine, who's a chef here in Pittsburgh, Justin Severino, he connected me with some folks. So I did some interviews, had some opportunities to work out there. I turned them down to stay here. Not sure why I did that, but
it was fate.
It was fate. Yeah, I guess that's how it all works. And yeah, then just started working more full time at Salt of the Earth. And then we make ice cream.
And now you make ice cream.
Absolutely.
So what is next for Millie's?
I think just continuing to grow and just be better, right? As a company, as ice cream makers, as all of that, right? We get pulled in a lot of directions, and there are a lot of things, that we need to just kind of continue to get better at, right? If we want this to be a long, sustaining business.
Well, you started franchising. Talk about that. How did that happen?
Yeah, that happened right post-COVID. The thing about ice cream is it's a community connector, right? I could find somebody who could be the Southeast Regional Director of Operations that lives in the Southeast and is just on the road every day, checking out shops, making sure that they're serving the right portion size and yada yada, right? But like, we can't truly be part of the community if the people who are there are not part of the community, right? And so, like, Jacksonville are our first, like, locations far outside of Pittsburgh. And, like, they live there. Their kids go to school there. Their friends are there. They know what's going on, right? And they're connected into the community in a way that, like, I never would be if I just had some guy or girl that lived in Atlanta that just drove to these marketplaces. And it's really, like, the important part of Millie's for us, right, is that, like, we're making these moments in the community, whether it be, like, a donation to an animal rescue thing or a donation for a food insecurity nonprofit or whatever, right? Like, we don't know about those things if we're just Chipotle of ice cream. So that is why we started franchising. And we realized that these people are doing a better job running the places, because some of them we opened up, not Florida obviously, but some of them in Pittsburgh we opened up and we're running, and then put franchisees in there, and they're doing a better job. The places are better, they're run better whenever, you have somebody who has some real investment in it.
Well, I know you do a lot of local sourcing for the original, like, Millie's. What about your franchises? How do they manage that? You could talk a little bit about the sourcing that you do.
Absolutely.
That's interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's still really important to them. It is, part of our DNA. That will never change. And it, frankly, with the way that things are at this moment, it's not that hard to find local things. You have a lot of people who do a lot of, from micro farms to bigger farms that just do things the right way. It is not that hard to find people who want to do good food through that in kind of any marketplace. Maybe my opinion changes on that in 5 years if we have a place in the middle of nowhere where it's impossible to find or whatever. But, milk is a little bit challenging in Florida, but we've found some people in, like, Green Cove Springs who are a 70-year-old dairy. They're bigger than the dairy we use, but they do all things the same way, right? And it's really great milk. And so it's like, it's that, or it's partnering with somebody who maybe we do, something in the shop with Florida oranges, or, on and on. So that's part of us. That's part of what we do. That's part of our ice cream, right? We use Twin Brook Dairy, and they provide all of our milk. And they will continue to provide all of our milk until we consume all the milk they can produce. And then we've identified some, like, neighboring farms that have the same kind of animal welfare standards.
So you're already thinking ahead.
Yeah, we have to be, right? And, I can't expect Twin Brook to just keep, like, adding cows when we take all of the milk that they make. So, because that's a risk for him too. He's, he buys a bunch of cows, and if I go out of business, then he's stuck with a bunch of cows. But we have these other folks who are just milking into a co-op, great milk, and it's just going into, whatever blended co-op milk. And we can start to take portions and all of their milk, and then there's another one and another one. And so we'll continue doing that, and that will be the makeup of the product we do.
Yeah, the dairy is obviously the key, important first thing to find wherever you go. So you haven't had trouble with where have you franchised to? You're in Jacksonville.
We're in Jacksonville. Yep. We are currently working on opening up a location in Buffalo. And then we have some folks that we're working on lease negotiation in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Cool.
Yeah. So, and then we sell some product in Chautauqua, New York. So Western New York, a little bit south of Buffalo.
So, not all local food systems are equal. And we have a really good local food system here in Pittsburgh with, food hubs, and you work with Three Rivers Grown quite a bit.
They're fantastic. We work with a lot of folks. Mona Me, who was in the Strip chocolate shop, she brings in all of our chocolate. One of the challenging things for us is to continue to grow and use, call it local fruit. Local fruit is hard. We work with people. We do one-off stuff when we can do it. We do small batch stuff. when they have availability of things. But, there's not really any local Western Pennsylvania farmers that could get me 20 or 25,000 pounds of strawberries, right? Just like, it's a huge risk for them to like focus all their energy on that. It's challenging to try to make them adhere to doing things the way we do. It ends up being counterproductive. Our big, kind of pillars in the local community are milk. We can take tons, and we do, and we will, and we'll continue to grow with that. We will do small harvest stuff, small batch stuff, one-off, small flavors when people can say, hey, I can bring you 200 pounds of peaches or something. But we work with a great, kind of tri-state co-op in New York State that is taking produce from, the kind of couple of states here for the bigger stuff, right? Because a batch of strawberry ice cream for us is 100 3-gallon buckets, right? And we might make that every other week. And so it's just, it's very challenging to get someone, to say, hey, farmer, you have to get a refrigerated truck because we're of a size where we have to adhere to like inspections of our deliveries. And I kind of view it as like why organic food is not necessarily great, right? Maybe in a big farm, great. But if I know a farmer is doing a certain thing and they just can't afford getting their soil tested, that's of no value to me, right? I know what they're doing. I'm not worried about what happened on their farm 100 years ago, right? Like and they shouldn't have to mitigate soil just to get an organic stamp. So that's always been kind of my thing from personal eating standpoint. But we're trying to work with people to participate in the food system in the way that is most beneficial to people who provide stuff for us.
Do you ever get an itch to chef again? Or do you have enough of that at home?
I have enough of that at home. I do occasionally think about it. I just binge watched that show, The Bear. Yeah. I watched that and I thought for a moment, like, I do miss this a little bit. But that subsided pretty quickly. I really like my life where it's at. I like what we're doing. I'm proud of what we do. And I haven't missed a kid's gymnastics practice, gymnastics meet, baseball game, hockey practice, other than being, tied up here or there. I've probably missed, I can count, in a combined 6 to 7 years of children's activities, I can count on probably 1, maybe 2 hands the amount of things I've missed. And if I'm working from noon to 11 p.m., Tuesday through Saturday, I'm missing all of that. Mm-hmm. So, and that was a big thing when I left Salt. It was like, obviously I wanted to do this, but like nobody's going to say on my tombstone, like, here's the dude who was the chef at Salt of the Earth. You know what I mean? And so I want to do things that is work that I'm proud of, but I still like Millie's isn't me, right? Like it's my job, it's my work. I'm proud of it, but like I still want to leave work and go home and see my kids. I never think, boy, I want to get out of this kid stuff and go do Millie's.
How many kids do you have?
2.
Okay.
Yep, and they're great.
How old
8
are
and
they?
6. My son Cassius is 8, daughter Madeline's 6, and it's the best, right? I get to see them before bed 95% of the time, and so it's just that's very important to me, and that's kind of what I am, who I am.
Do you bring ice cream to all the kids' stuff?
I don't. It's funny. My poor kids, like they have to suffer the fate of like when there's a school event, right? We'll like donate ice cream to their school. And all the kids are like, Millie's. But then they go home and like I don't have any pints of Millie's at the house. It's like the guy who is who sells tires that has like bad tires on his car. Like when I'm leaving here, it's
the cobbler's kids have no shoes.
Exactly. When I'm leaving here, I'm like, ready to go home. I'm not thinking about like, hey, I got to stock up the freezer. But we sell in a lot of Giant Eagles and markets and things. So when I'm there, I buy our ice cream in pints, but. They don't have.
You buy your own ice cream.
I do.
Back.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, It's a interesting thing. I've had like 3 ideas that I thought were going to revolutionize ice cream and just make me own my own helicopter because I'll be so wealthy. Okay. And I've gone through 2 of them, and you can see my 2012 Ford F-250 truck, so you can assume I don't own a helicopter. One was corn nuts as a topping. I'm like, this would be a fantastic topping. People are like, what the hell are you doing? 2 was and when we started Millie's, we did this, and I was like, this is going to blow it away. I'm actually going to do it again in September. It's a brioche bun that's cut, right? Because in, like, Sicily, it's like a big thing, like, gelato con brioche for breakfast. So either they'll do, like, gelato or sorbetto or, like, basically Italian ice. And so there's a place that's very famous. They were on that Netflix show, and they just do 2. They do lemon and almond because Noto, Sicily, is like known for their almonds. And it's like granita, basically. And people eat it. I mean, there's 100 cafe tables, and everybody's eating it.
So you get the brioche bun, and you cut it off. Cut the top off?
Yeah.
And then you hollow it out.
And we griddled it.
It becomes like a bowl.
Yeah, well, so we did it like a sandwich.
Oh, okay.
Right? And so we there's like this hot press. It's like a sandwich press. We cut it. We put the scoop of ice cream in there, put the top on, press this thing down. It was like 15 seconds, 20 seconds. So the ice cream's still frozen. This thing's hot. But Zoe and I are going to make some videos of this because it's going to be good.
Where will that be available?
I don't know yet.
I think you
Probably Shady
side.
Side.
If you use a donut.
I know, but I don't,
No, I'm with you. Like I'm
yes.
You don't want the extra fried stuff. You've already got all of the layers of fat and sweet and
we're going to do some
brioche.
donut stuff in Buffalo because there's a really great hometown donut place in Buffalo that we're going to partner up with. But I'm going to do the gelato con brioche again. And I was like, people are going to line up around the block. Nobody wanted it. No. I don't know if, this was early, like social media wasn't the thing that it is now. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, maybe social media will push you over the edge because that sounds phenomenal.
Yes.
And I don't want the donut because I don't want that extra added sweet, fat, whatever. That's not going to be the texture of the brioche. Like, I'm totally down for this, Chad.
Yes.
I want to be there.
Great. I will let you know. We'll make it. We'll do it.
We'll do a viral video cooking with Chad.
There we go. I'm going to make this.
And then everybody will want one.
Yeah.
So you said that you had 3. So the first one was the corn nuts, which you chopped them up, topping. Nobody liked them.
Nobody cared for them.
And now this brioche thing.
The brioche thing, nobody took it.
Okay, and then what's the third one?
The third one is I'm going to make. Have you tried the Dubai chocolate yet? It's a Dubai chocolate bar. So it is like it's basically in a mold, and so they put a layer of chocolate down. They do them dark and milk, and then they take kataifi and they make like a pistachio paste, like grind.
What is kataifi?
It's shredded phyllo, so it's like crunchy.
Oh.
I wish I would have got. I was going to get some of these yesterday, not for this, but
just
because they're so fantastic. And then more chocolate. So you cut it, and it's like, it's not molten because it's not like dumping out, but it's like real soft, and it's crunchy and pistachio. It's fantastic.
Yeah?
Mon Ami sells it.
Okay.
You should go down and buy it at Mon Ami. Very expensive. I'm going to make an ice cream version of that, but I'm going to do it, instead of pistachio, I'm going to do it with hazelnuts. I'm going to grind up hazelnuts because I love chocolate and hazelnut. We tried making gianduja ice cream, didn't work.
What is that?
Gianduja is like the original Nutella. So there's it's chocolate and it's ground hazelnuts from Piemonte. And it basically, like, they grind them so fine that it's not like there's no texture to it. It's basically like hazelnut butter. And then they blend chocolate with it, and then they mold it, and it's great, super soft. Again, Mon Ami. You would think that I own Mon Ami with all the Mon Ami reference drops here. And it's fantastic. But, I mean, it's like, I still love Nutella, right? I prefer gianduja. I realize Nutella is like, if you see a jar of Nutella, there's like more sugar in it than actually is in the jar. right? And there's like weird palm oil and, you know, the problematic stuff around that. But, you know, like now that I'm 42, I find that I don't, on top of the stresses of my daily life, I just don't like sleep a whole lot. So I'm like up 2 to 3 times a day, 2 to 3 times a night. And I'm now like a midnight snack eater. And so like I'll take some Nutella and spread it on a cookie, drink some milk. Quiet. There's nobody awake in my house.
Nice.
Frozen hazelnut chocolate. That's going to be, if brioche doesn't make me wealthy beyond my wildest dreams.
Are there any flavors that you were surprised that were a hit?
Chioggia beet.
Oh.
Chioggia beet was really good.
Huh. Now the Chioggia beets, those are the ones that are stripy.
Yep.
And did you do some sort of stripey in the ice cream?
No, we just roasted them. Pureed them, and blended it into the ice cream base. And it was really good. And parents loved it because they just told their kids it was strawberry. And since it was pink, the kids were like, great, this is the best strawberry ice cream I ever had. Like, it doesn't taste anything like strawberry.
That's the flavor I wanted to. I told you about this, the one that Nate made for... He was doing ice cream for a while. Did you know about his ice cream adventure?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that
Absolutely.
was great. But he did one that was pickled ginger. So it was pink.
Yeah.
And I think he colored it with some beets.
Yeah.
But it was so good. It had the spicy, it had the sweet, it had the savory, and it was such a good ice cream. That was for the first Picklesburg. I think you should take that and run with it.
Yeah, we have done like some ginger stuff. We've done a decent amount. Not pickled ginger, done a decent amount. Ginger gets no love. People just don't want any ginger ice cream. Because to me, like ginger, it has to be like spicy, right? So when we've done it, we've done like basically like we've like put ginger in it like 3 ways, call it, right? So ground ginger, because it just adds like some depth to it. And then ginger juice, so we just juice ginger. And then like candied ginger. And then we chop up into like little fragments, and since it's candied, it doesn't freeze. It remains kind of like gummy in there. And people are like, hey, this is fun. I'll never get this. You know, they just taste it and they're just like, it's not for me. Because it's zesty, which is how it should be, right? It's ginger. It should be zesty. That's what you want with ginger, but people are like, I'm not going to get a bowl of this.
You get the zesty and the sweet, and then with the pickled ginger, you get a little of the funk too.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
All right. So no, you're not going to do that.
No, not going to do that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for being honest with me,
Yeah,
Chad.
sorry.
I appreciate that.
Sorry.
What about like a wasabi?
You know, I don't think we've ever tried wasabi.
Because that's the
wasabi.
Szechuan peppercorn wasabi.
Yeah.
Like those are all the
spicy stuff. Ends up getting mixed receptions.
I know people are weird.
Sometimes it's good. Sometimes people really love it. Sometimes they don't. We did like a Mexican hot chocolate one, like last year, 2 years ago.
Really
that was really good. We did like just like kind of a dark chocolate and maybe like Thai bird chilies or something like that one. That was not like received very well. So the spicy and ice creams or whatever.
Okay, fine. I'll take that dream out of my head.
Yeah.
Anything else new?
We do 4 new flavors each month. So we
And
always
how do you
have
guys
4.
pitch those? Do you like sit in a room and use a whiteboard? And
Yeah, sort of. You know, oftentimes we'll do like once a month we'll do a flavor meeting and we'll just talk about, you know, if we want it to be a theme. Sometimes it's a theme, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just like a couple of things. You know, we want them to have some common thread, but it's not always a theme. And then we just kind of like, they come up with 10 ideas and then we whittle it down into what we think we either want to make or will perform well.
Are you looking like ahead, like fashion, like into the? You're already thinking
yeah,
about
they're
the
like
holiday
about
season.
6 months ahead at any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's always interesting to try to kind of balance the trends of things, right? Because we could do a better job of trying to like adhere to some trends, but I also don't want to be just kind of like an also ran, right? Like the Dubai chocolate thing is kind of past and gone, and I'm not looking to necessarily like, look what we're doing, right? But I think like conceptually it'll be really fun, right? It'll be like a little frozen ice cream thing with like a kind of a liquidy, crunchy hazelnut center.
So it'll be more like a bar or sandwich.
Yeah, it'll be like like a bar or like a puck on an ice cream sandwich. But it won't be like, we won't serve it with cookies or anything. So it'll be like, something that you'll be able to eat, and it'll be with our chocolate ice cream. I think it'll be great.
Cool. Well, Chad, this is so much fun. Thank you so much for being on Bowl and Spoon.
Thank you for including me. I appreciate it.
Everyone knows that food is cool. No secret. Eat that food with a bowl and spoon. Everyone knows that food is cool. No secret. Eat that food with a bowl and spoon.
With Bowl and Spoon is written, produced and hosted by Shelley Danko Day. Original theme song was written and performed by Paul LeBreeze and friends. You can listen to With Bowl and Spoon wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe, like, review and share. Follow us and send us questions or messages on Facebook and Instagram at With Bowl and Spoon. Thanks for listening.